Hey, let's do a really good job when we get out there, okay?
Welcome, all and sundry. Welcome, everyone. Sean and Jerry on the podcast nights. We are on the late night pod tonight. We are talking playoffs. We can talk about playoffs. Playoffs? You kidding me?
We can talk about playoffs.
It's the
But it's
playoffs.
still relevant right now.
Neither one of us are in the playoffs, so we're the perfect people to comment on it. And we will also we'll recap last week and what turned out to be a fairly anticlimactic finish, except for the number 2 bye was a sweat late. We'll talk about the predictions for the Sacco first round, the Sacco semifinals, or I guess now it's the TPOPPs as we're calling them, the 10 pounds of pudding award, which is the new name for the trophy. So we'll talk about the TPOPPs and we'll talk about the first round of the playoffs. So, getting right into the recap because we're doing the late night pod, so we got to go a little bit more quickly as I drag this on. I pulled it out at the end against Brad. This right here was the closest, the only sweat of the week. Every other matchup was done and dusted by Monday Night Football,
Yes,
basically.
I'm sitting at the bar with I'm sitting at the bar with Zach, and he's just like, Mostert just needs this. Mostert just needs, and I'm just like, you don't have Mostert. What are you doing? And little did I know, Sean's out here just delivering Zach a fucking first round bye because Zach is a box.
See, what you guys don't realize is that what Zach did is he really relaxed his sphincter. The horseshoe fell out, and he handed it to me right before our match. That's what
Which then
happened.
also just preemptively you just shoved it right back in by giving him a bye, or
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, I had to hold on to it for the match, and then I gave it right back in there for the
like
bye.
before the game started, I'm talking to Zach and I was like, maybe maybe I throw this game. Maybe I sit to a maybe this is the best thing for me because I don't want to end up playing window again. I'd rather play Sean or I'd rather play Alex. Maybe this is what I need to do. He's like, yeah, but Sean can win. I'm like, Sean's not gonna win. Like he's like 35% right now. There's no way. And then you just go out there and you win by fucking 15 points.
I said I was under projected on going into Monday night because the average of they had me as like a 30, yeah, like whatever, 35% chance to win going into Monday night, but I needed like 20 something, and Raheem Mostert and Saquon together are averaging a little over 30. So like I understand Mostert was inflated by some touchdowns, but he got 2 touchdowns in that game, as did
Barkley got two
Saquon
touchdowns as
Barkley.
well, right?
Right. I got 4 touchdowns out of both out of those two guys.
I don't
Uh,
think I've had 4 touchdowns in 1 week all year.
until this week, maybe. Um, you and I both had really good games going into our Sacco matchup, or our Teapot matchup. So it'll be really interesting to see. But I win, which means Brad gets relegated to the 3 seed. I'm still looking for the definition of relegation. But Brad gets relegated to the 3 seed, and will play against the wild card, which we'll find out a little bit later.
I'm just saying, well, I mean, we all know who it is.
We
I
know
just
who
want
it
to throw it
is.
out there. I appreciate the post that Brad made, drinking out of the coffee cup and everything. But Brad never won a playoff game. Putman has to play against the number one overall point scorer. I'm not liking his chances. I'm just throwing that out there early.
If I will say though, I like Brad is one of the few people who I'm not actively rooting against in this playoffs, and we'll get to that in our predictions. But there are several people in this round of the playoffs that I am actively rooting against, and I think they all know who they are. Um,
If
so
not, we're going to say fuck them a bunch in a few minutes here. So
so let's go to your matchup. Not that it necessarily. This is actually probably the one with the least implications. It just determines Sacco seeding or T-pop seeding. Um,
yeah, so this is a part. I had a conversation with a couple of different people about. So I legitimately thought about sitting Tua because I was like, this wouldn't affect any of the actual playoff seedings, and it would affect how who I would play. And I think that actually matters a lot. Like I don't I don't want to go to Waffle House again.
you
So
can do the SAT.
That was worse. So we're gonna talk about. I'm assuming we're gonna talk about it later a little bit, but like, I feel like I got the worst end of both of these punishments. Doing it by myself was absolutely miserable, and secondarily, being blackout drunk before we started the SAT, not a good combination. I don't want to do it again. I'm just trying to avoid it all. So, but yes, probably not as big of an implication of playoff stuff going on for this week. Window again, bottom four, not someone I'd want to play because he is the highest points of the bottom four. But you got to not love how his team did this week. He does end up finishing 10th.
Yeah, I mean, you like I said, you of the four teams in the TPOPs, you and I are the highest score or the highest scorers this past week. But Window obviously, I think, has the best matchup because if there's any team that you want to play in the bottom four right now, it's Alex has been on a skid and flamed out of the playoff picture. So I think Window's probably best set up to avoid playing for the TPOP. But you know, his team didn't do well. But there were also like 4 or 5 teams. I think this was 4 teams that did not do well.
So I think the biggest issue that he's going to run into is that A-Chain's in a committee, and I just think he's going to run into a real problem with no Herbert. Like, does he start Dobbs?
Yeah, I mean he has to, right? Like his
and Dobbs put up 4.6 against LA or Las Vegas. Like
Dobbs. I don't know. We'll go to the waiver wire just to check and see if he's made any changes. Dobbs has some limited upside, but like the big thing for him is going to be, you know, you're right. Herbert is a monumental loss for him. If Jordan Love has a bad game, he's in real trouble, because he's got to get points somewhere. He does have skill position players that can deliver. Like Achan has boom potential, as does Puka.
Obviously does. Didn't he drop 50 in a week earlier this year? I mean,
Breeze,
he obviously has that potential, but like, I don't know, the committee there, Dallas is going more pass heavy. I mean, he actually got decent production out of all of his wide receivers this week between DK, Puka, and Jalen. So
not to mention Drake London with 24 on his bench. So yeah, but it'll be interesting to see.
There was a reason I didn't want to play him again this week.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing that out there. He obviously had some playmakers.
It might have been a closer game, but for the defenses, but for Justin Herbert getting injured, it could have been a closer game. But I don't think he was in any shape to win to compete for the wild card, given what McMillan did, and given how many points he was chasing.
Yeah, because didn't McMillan drop like 150?
130, but he was already up by 30 at the like going into the week. So let's turn to a game that only mattered really for James and Scotty. We thought going into it, you know, at least I think I predicted James to win because fantasy has no meaning and it's completely luck based and random. But and I just feel like sometimes the team that doesn't deserve to win wins. But like obviously Scotty was the odds-on favorite. Obviously he won his 12th game of the season. Scotty has put up one of the best regular seasons in league history in his rookie campaign. It's very frustrating.
This is a weird thing because of the expansion of the NFL season. Like, I'm pretty sure that previously James had the record at 12-1 regular season. So Scotty matches the record for most wins in a regular season.
Yeah, and like I would say James still has the best regular season of all time because of the win percentage, you know, having only 1 win to 2 or only 1 loss to 2. But I agree with you that it's only the second time that we've had a 12-win season in league history. So Scotty's got to love where he's at, and he's obviously got the bye. So we'll get to the bracket later on. And his team is still putting up 130 because Lamar Jackson is just a monster, and Jake Browning is apparently legit.
I don't know if I'm gonna say that quite yet. But we'll get a little bit more into the future things. I guess we're really not going to talk about.
We're not going to talk about Scotty much, and the thing is,
so I will say, like, obviously, I said from the beginning of the season, Scotty was in my top 3. I liked a lot of his picks. There's a lot, like, maybe he has been blessed with this bye at the perfect time because Keenan Allen out, coming up in this
questionable.
Tyreek Hill questionable this next week. So maybe this week to get his team back to healthy. But obviously Keenan Allen's not going to be what he was without Justin Herbert, right?
Probably. But the scariest part about
I'm
Scotty's
just seeing a
team.
lot of Q's next to names for Scotty, and like I said, this bye week probably couldn't have come at a better time than it is
Oh,
for him.
100% agree on that front. But for Scotty, the biggest, the scariest statistic about Scotty's team is he put up 130 this week, and he had Josh Jacobs, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen, all in single digits. Not to mention Taysom Hill had an ice bagel. So you're talking about guys who, relatively speaking, and I know they all had something. They all had about 6 to 8 at least, if not more. But like they all had single digits. There's much greater upside there. Scotty's team is still, I think, the odds-on favorite to walk out of here with the title.
I would say
But as
yes.
he said in the chat, and as you said just now, I don't like Q's.
I don't like Q's either. Yeah.
So yeah, James, bad week. Moving to, we'll talk more about James later because we'll get into his matchup that he's playing this week. He did edge out Alex for a playoff spot. The Battle of Hagerstown went to McMillan, as did the lone playoff spot of the two of them. McMillan taking the wild card. Alex needed a win and help, and he would have, had he won, he would have been in. But his team laid an egg in the most important game of the year.
Yeah, it doesn't help that he's out here starting Jalen Warren and Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, he has a weak team. I'm sorry. Like, I actually think
It's just a weird team though, because like I feel like most weeks you're expecting to start Tyler Lockett. And it's just a bunch of guys that's like from name recognition you wouldn't think would start over him, but then it's like no, just from production this year, obviously it makes sense why he made the decisions that he made.
yeah, I'm not second guessing him. I just don't think he has a good team. And meanwhile, once again,
Jalen Hurts putting up 9 is kind of
baffling.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, he's got some bright spots. DJ
I don't
Moore.
know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Moore had
Isn't
a great
Jalen Hurts
game.
number 1 fantasy quarterback right now, and he put up 8.8?
He is the number 2 fantasy quarterback now. I don't know if he was one going into that game, but he's putting up 22 a week. So he definitely had a stinker. Moore had a good game. Ayuk obviously is a great player from fantasy perspective, but otherwise his team underperformed. And there's really not a. I mean, Mondre was out, so I think Mondre probably starts instead of Jalen Warren if healthy.
Isaiah Pacheco is out.
But like still, like it's not his James Conner was on bye, but it's still not a great lineup. I say that and watch him like beat me in the TPOP final. But yeah, but McMillan on the other hand, Debo doing Debo things, a lot of guys putting up decent numbers. McCaffrey has such a high floor that it's impossible. Like McMillan just has these monumental upside guys who can win you a week by themselves, and their floors are so high in terms of Debo and McCaffrey and that San Francisco offense that it's hard for him to lose unless everybody else on his team shits the bed.
And I think that McMillan has the added benefit of he knows who he's going to start.
Yeah.
Like I just looked at his bench and I'm like, Demario Douglas, who?
Cade Otton.
Keaton Mitchell, Cade Otton. Yeah, I'm just like, who are these people? Like
he's the one that can't afford injuries.
Yeah, he can't afford injuries, but he knows who he's going to start, and he's going to start them confidently. And they're people who he knows are going to produce.
Yeah, 100%. And that just leaves Zach and Jason Smith. This was a big game going into it because if Jason Smith had won, this could have really shaken up the bye standings depending upon total points scored. It would have basically the bye would have likely gone to Jason Smith or Brad at that point. And I think Brad would have been the odds-on favorite based on the scores, but Jason had a really bad week.
Maybe he broke 10 points with his quarterbacks. If he did, it was real close. I don't think that Jason's going to have another week where CJ Stroud and Jared Goff combined for less than 10.5.
Well, obviously, Stroud got hurt, but the real question is, Jason doesn't have a bye, and Stroud isn't he in the concussion protocol?
I know he went out for a concussion. I don't know what his odds are of playing right now.
Questionable currently.
I don't like Q's.
Don't. That should have been the. We might have to change the episode title to "I Don't Like Cues." Yeah, I'm trying to look at the recent news for him, but haven't seen anything. If you're in the chat, shout out. Look, someone research the CJ Stroud health situation and give us an update.
I mean, secondarily to that, though, talking about health, he made a pretty big trade, I think, in week 13 for Jonathan Taylor. Is Jonathan Taylor going to play?
It's a great question.
Like, I feel like Jason's been on this roller coaster of
currently doubtful.
Here's a trade. Hey, look, he smacked it. He's doing way better. Here's another trade. Oh shit, none of his guys are playing from it. I don't know how to feel about. I mean, I think we should do at some point, maybe obviously not tonight, but at some point in the future, let's have a dedicated like 10 minutes just to the number of trades Jason did this year and see if he won or lost them.
Yeah. I can't see any news for these guys, but right now Taylor is listed as doubtful, and like I said, Stroud's listed as questionable. Also, you know who else is listed as questionable? ETN. So there's
really hope that ETN is able to continue.
There's definitely some cues over there, but meanwhile, Zach has the highest score, I believe, of the week, if not the highest, certainly up there among them. Yeah, second highest to yours truly. Sorry. But yeah, coming up with a big win. You know, Derrick Henry getting garbage time TDs was big. Nuke, Nuke and Henry both got up to slow starts and then really came alive towards the end. James Cook put up 20. Zach definitely. Zach's team's getting hot at the right time.
I'm a little curious to see what happens with Justin Jefferson this week. He obviously finally gets Justin Jefferson back, and then he immediately goes back out for an injury. So whether or not he's going to have Jefferson, I think, is going to make a difference. But, you know, again, he's one of those people where maybe the bye is the perfect time for him. Even if Jefferson sits this week, maybe he's back next week.
True. Before we get to the playoff brackets, just to catch up on the chat, Alex, thankfully, thank you, Alex, for looking up the Stroud situation and commenting. No practice for Stroud today. He's still in the protocol. So, not a good time for Jason Smith to have Stroud in the protocol, who Stroud has been... Yeah, it's a bad time, Bob. And Scott says Jason crushed his trade with Brad. So,
like I said, Jason made, I feel like, at least 2, if not 3 trades that involved like 3 or more players.
And big name players.
Yeah. So, we'll see how it all turns out.
Let's go to the bracket because I think it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind. I did update the bracket to make sure it was reflecting what we needed it to as early as
I noticed you did because I went in there.
Got my old 2017 league manager abilities here. So
the season I couldn't commission, you stepped up admirably, and then you're already stepping up now. I didn't even have to do it. I went in to do it. Already done.
I was at work. I saw it. I'm like, this is annoying. I want to know what it's supposed to look like. Went in and did it.
Well, and now we know what the bracket is, which is in one side of the bracket we've got Jason Smith taking on James. Jerry, I don't know if you can see this. I don't know if you're watching. I guess you can't see my screen, but
I got you.
Okay, because you can see that Jason Smith's picture is the one from the batch, which makes him look so great. So I've got Jason Smith up against James, and the winner plays the number 1 seed, Scotty. Meanwhile, on the other side of the bracket, we've got the other Jason McMillan, our wild card, going up against Brad with his coffee mug, with the winner playing Zach. So Brad has a chance here. Brad and Zach have had some words in the JC Penny chat over Zach being a luck box, and understandably so. But they were fighting for that bye. They were barking about Brad was barking about the Zach being a luck box, and Zach was trolling. And they are on the same side of the bracket and could meet in the semifinals. So, a lot of interesting matchups. Love it. But And the last interesting thing too is one of the interesting experiments was the kind of, as Brad's team is named, volcano power group at the midway point of the draft, and we have the volcano matchup is on Zach's side of the bracket because there's only two guys who actually made the playoffs of that group, whereas Alex and I did not. So, with all that said, let's get to our playoff round 1 predictions, and we will start with the TPOPs. Looking at the matchup of the hosts right now, this is you versus myself. You know, right now I don't know if you set your lineup yet or not, but right now the projection is 124 to 120. It's about a 4.7 point favorite for me right now.
So, at a quick glance, I'm going to look at your side and I'm going to look at my side, and I don't like Q's.
I just gonna say that.
I just don't like Q's.
And I got a lot of them.
You do. And if Raheem Mostert sits, do you know what? Oh wait, hold on. Maybe
I'm all right if Mostert sits.
I might have spoke too soon. Yeah, maybe I spoke too soon. Never mind. I already dropped Jeff Wilson. So I don't like Q's. I think it'll be close. I really think that this is going to come down to how well Tua bounces back against the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough.
I love my matchups on the bottom half of my roster, but like Tua playing against the Jets, I don't love. Kenneth Walker playing against Philly, I don't love. I don't know if I'm going to start Marquise Brown yet. He's my 1Q that I have. I just picked him up. I don't know. I think it'll be close. I hope all of your players, get COVID and don't play this week.
I appreciate you saying COVID. So here's the thing: if for some reason Mostert doesn't start, the crazy part is I've got Chuba Hubbard, who actually is starting right now in Carolina and might be serviceable if I want to go running back. But I also am considering. I don't like the matchup, but I'm considering Evan Engram after he and Njoku both put up 20-plus point performances last week. I might rock double tight end, like a tight end at flex, and do double tight end.
Please do.
I know, but I don't. Scotty says delete Q from the alphabet, man. Removing Q from my keyboard. No, the thing that helps me here is a lot of the guys who are all questionable are all wide receivers, save for Mostert. And Mostert's also like vet rest kind of thing. Like I've seen him take Wednesday practices off anyway for just general rest issues this late in the season. I think Mostert will play. I don't know the status of the wide receivers, but I don't think any have major injury concerns. It's all just, I think, little tweaks and whatever. This is tough. I'm gonna give myself the nod because I just looking at the averages, I think I have overall a higher average, and I do think my players have a generally higher floor. But I think the big question mark in our matchup is like I'm looking at your boom guys. I'm looking at Tua, I'm looking at Mixon, I'm looking at Cooper Kupp, I'm looking at Calvin Ridley, even Hollywood and George Kittle. Like I'm looking at the guys who can put up big numbers to see what are their matchups, because the truth is I think our matchups won and lost on I don't think it's won or lost on my lineup. I think my lineup has a solid enough floor that I'll probably be around 110 or 115 in a worst case scenario. I think it's a question of if you can beat, if you can have guys go off.
I am really hoping that the Rams just at all phases of the game dominate the Commanders this week.
Me too.
That is what I need.
Cooper Kupp would be monstrous.
I got Cooper Kupp, I got Matt Stafford, I got the Rams defense.
Yeah.
Like all three levels, just put it all together.
It's a
good
good
matchup.
matchup.
Touchdown passes to Cooper Kupp. Let's get a defensive touchdown. The Rams defense, I think, is a little bit underrated. I understand like what you're talking about with the averages and everything. Like the Rams defense hasn't been great overall this year, but they get about just as good of a matchup as you can have in Washington.
And
And I'm not 100% sure that I'm going to start the Rams yet. I do still have the Saints playing against the Giants, which should be a good matchup. And I do still have the Bills. I'm not starting the Bills this week. I'm really just holding on to the Bills for next week, just in case I actually have to worry about that matchup. But yeah, I'm still up in the air between the Saints and the Rams, just for the purposes of that.
what?
Uh,
And just one more thing I wanted to say. My matchup in terms of my quarterbacks is pretty rough. Cleveland's defense is good, and Fields has weeks where he can really lay an egg. And Patrick Mahomes has not been. I want to know what Patrick Mahomes' ranking right now is. QB
I
8.
think 9, 8. Okay.
QB 8, and he goes up against New England, who granted has a terrible offense, but has a decent defense.
Their defense is decent. Yeah, the defense is decent.
So don't love those matchups, but I'm giving myself the nod. I think I have a higher floor, and I don't want to be in the Sacco.
I really don't want to be. I just did my punishment, and I don't want to do it
You're
again.
ready to do it again. Your stomach's
I'm not.
already primed.
I
Do the beer mouth.
I did. I don't know what that is. I don't want it.
Who you got?
I'm taking myself. I do believe that, like I said, I think that Tua is going to have a little bit of a bounce back game, even though it's a bad matchup against the Jets. I think Joe Mixon has played actually better since Burrow went down.
I'm actually curious now what Mixon's stats have been in the last couple weeks.
He's been
20,
great.
26 and 20 the last 2 weeks. 26.7 and 20.
That's what I'm saying. It's like since Burrow went down, Mixon's been better.
They don't have any other options.
He's getting a little bit more work than he was. Obviously, he's averaged 20 carries per game in the last 2 weeks, whereas he was kind of sitting in that 15-ish range for most of the season.
Yeah.
But he also has 9 catches in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, true.
I don't hate it.
Yeah.
Obviously, he doesn't have the best matchup against Minnesota, but I guess his matchup's okay against Minnesota. But Kenneth Walker, I'm really just hoping for a vulture touchdown. Give me one from the 1 yard, because Philadelphia's pass defense is a little bit more suspect, which is why right now I have Jackson Smith and Jigma in my starting lineup. The run defense is really good. I'm hoping that I just don't see how I don't play Kenneth Walker, considering how he's played throughout the year. But yeah, no, I'm actually kind of liking my matchups a little bit more than you would expect, given kind of how the top half looks. And like I said, I'm hoping that the Rams just kind of dominate the Commanders. If they were playing in Washington, I would be tempted to go to that game because of how many players I have starting.
Because of the implications.
Because of the implication.
All right. Well,
Going with myself. Fuck you, Sean. Sorry. You haven't gotten to do a punishment. It's your turn.
I haven't. In 15 years, I have never won the sack. No, I haven't won since season 1 a title.
Teapot.
But I have not won the
I like this new name. Let's keep it with the Teapot. Sacco, we're not copying the league anymore. This is the Teapot.
So I have not won. Well, the T-Pop is named after the league, but whatever. I have not won the T-Pop in 15 seasons. And I don't intend to start.
Let's be real. You deserve it, Sean.
This season, I don't. If there's one team that deserves it, we're going to talk about them now. It's Alex. I'm sorry. If you ask me who deserves to get the Sacco this year, it's Alex. My team at least has some potential and some upside. His team, and I know by me saying this, I am dooming
You're just
myself.
guaranteeing for him to drop 150 this week.
No. He's going to be garbage this week, and I'm going to lose, and then he's going to wallop me. He's going to mollywop me in the T-Pop final. But I think Alex is the weakest of the 4 T-Pop teams. I think Window wins this week.
Yes. Just looking at straight across the board. He kind of just check. And I don't like Qs.
Yeah.
An even number of Qs, actually. Okay, I was wrong. But yeah, I don't like Qs. I don't like Jalen Warren. Is Jalen Warren going to play? Is it not going to be Najee? I don't know.
I don't
like James Conner against San Francisco. Brandon Ayuk, I get. He's like the number 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range fantasy receiver this year. But
I do want to
like at any given week, you have George Kittle, you have Debo, you have Christian McCaffrey. Like there's too many weapons. Like any given week, he could just give you nothing. T.
one.
Higgins, don't get me wrong, I would love for T. Higgins to just like go off and have like 600 yards this week because I did bet on T. Higgins overall season total on yards at like 950. I think he's like 800 short of that going into this. Like, he hasn't done shit all year, so like I would love it if T. Higgins could have a big game, but like I just don't think it's gonna happen.
So one thing to keep in mind, if you're Alex, and Alex even conceded it's hard to beat a team 3 times. He's actually beaten Window both times this year. They played in week 3 and week 12. But here is where, if you're Alex, you have a sliver of hope. It's 2 words. Justin Herbert. Herbert's out. At least he's questionable right now, right? Or no, he's on IR. So he's out.
He's done.
So Nick Mullins is Windows Superflex right now. And if you're looking, to be fair, the 4 quarterbacks in this matchup are Jordan Love, Nick Mullins, Gardner Minshew, and Jalen Hurts.
That's exactly what you would expect out of a 2 quarterback league. Fair
enough. But of those, if you're giving me, if I get to pick one quarterback committee, obviously you smash the one with Hurts. Actually would rather
I don't see a scenario where Jalen Hurts goes under 10 again.
Yeah.
But that was the anomaly. They were playing against the Cowboys. I don't think that's going to happen again. You're going to see like 2 or 3 push touchdowns for Jalen Hurts this week. That's just what's going to happen.
So Window already has to make up points in his skill positions and his defense, which I think he will. I think he has the better running backs, better wide receivers, and I also think he has the better defense. The one of the big question marks is the defense too, because Miami has been kind of up and down. Their defense is definitely getting better under Vic Fangio, but they play against the Jets, who any other time I would say they're going to get at least 8 points, if not 12 to 15 against Zach Wilson. But now Zach Wilson coming back in the starting job, not giving a shit, is
Zach Wilson's just like, nah, I don't really feel like starting. While you're doing it, it's like, okay, fine, I'm just going to drop 4 touchdowns, 300 yards, no big deal.
Like everyone telling Zach Wilson,
have to bang moms.
Like everyone's telling Zach Wilson, you're garbage, you're trash, you're absolute dog shit. And then he goes, like, it's that, what's the Tim Robinson, I think you should leave. Like, you sure about that? You sure about that? That's why.
My cousin Penni.
So you sure about that 5 minutes? No. So like, honestly, I think a lot comes down to the Dolphins matchup against the Jets, obviously, because it'll affect Achane, Breece Hall, the Dolphins D. But there is going to be, with Window, some offset because Breece Hall touchdown means Dolphins defense is going down. So I do give the nod to Window ultimately. I think his skill position players are just too good and have too high of floors and to really have Alex make it up in the quarterback. But it sounds like we both have,
like I said, outside of Jalen Hurts, I think having a bounce back game, I do think that Window just kind of has the better lineup altogether.
Agreed. And now we're talking playoffs. We'll start with the 4 versus 5 matchup. Jason Smith and James. Interestingly, again, I'm actually gonna look back. I didn't do this for our matchup, so we only played once this season, and you beat me.
Of course I did.
In this matchup, once again, like Window and Alex, James put up numbers in both games. And in week 11, Jason had I think that was the one where Jason finally cooled off after he had been on a tear against James. But the projection favors Jason Smith by about 10.
It does.
However,
that we're going to adjust if Stroud doesn't play.
Correct. Because right now it's projecting Stroud for 18.4.
Still no Jonathan Taylor.
And his backup quarterback right now is Bryce Young.
It's bad time, Bob. I look at it, and just off a gut feeling, just looking at it from at a first glance. Like, I feel like Jason has to be the favorite, obviously. I think even if CJ Stroud sits,
If
I don't
CJ
know. Correct me if I'm
Stroud's
wrong. Atlanta's not a great defense against quarterbacks, right? Like, maybe I'm wrong there.
if Jason Stroud sits, or I'm sorry, if Jason Stroud, if CJ Stroud sits, I'm going to say James is the favorite, and I'll explain why. I do think that the drop off from CJ Stroud to Bryce Young, who is the QB 26 right now, who is averaging 10 a game, is a substantial drop off. And the average is, although I understand the projection is favors Smith by 10, the average points per game these two teams are scoring is within 6. James has a booming team. Now, again, the big question is, for me, or one of the things that can shape, one of the things that's carried James's team this year is the Dallas Cowboys defense. They have Buffalo and Josh Allen. That's not an easy matchup, even if Buffalo's been inconsistent this year. Meanwhile, Jason Smith gets the Chiefs defense, who's been pretty good. Defense number 12, but like a pretty good defense, had some upside. And they're playing the Patriots.
Who's starting this week? Mac Jones or Bailey Zappi?
Who cares whether McCorkle starts?
I mean, that was kind of the point I was trying to make.
Like Bill Belichick would be a better starting quarterback. There's some favorable matchups for Jason Smith, but I said at the beginning of the show that there are some teams that I want to flame out. There are some teams that I hate, that I want to lose badly. And of the teams that I want to lose in the playoffs, the Mount Rushmore has Jason Smith, Zach, and Scotty all over it. Yeah.
Wow.
All three of them are my... If I have the FBI's 3 most wanted fugitives, those are the 3 on my list that I want to flame out. So give me James. And I don't like making that prediction. James beat me in the last 4 years. James has beaten me in 2 different finals. I don't like rooting for James to win another title. I don't want him to win another title. But if the options are James or Jason Smith, give me James. Yeah, I said it.
So, I will say...
Sorry, last thing. Stroud also had his top 3 targets, Alex mentioned in the chat. So that is a factor. Because he's got a point. Tank Dell, out. Nico Collins, out.
So, obviously, nobody likes when Jason, roster baits to his team.
Ugh.
Even in years when he doesn't win. So I can't imagine what it's going to be like in a year when he does. And I know, maybe many people don't remember this, but Jason has won a title in this league. And I'm pretty sure the year that he won the title, he played against an opponent who put up maybe I'm misremembering, but I think it was 55 points.
Who was that opponent?
I believe it was Z-Back.
Okay.
If Jason goes out there and drops 140 on a team in the championship who puts up 125, we will never hear the end of it.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Having said that, give me Jason. Jason's going to fucking wipe the floor with James this week. That's what's just going to happen.
I'm looking to the league history because I'm pretty sure this was the year he won the title. I think he named his team Miami Dolphins Suck because he's an asshole.
Yeah, that was awesome.
He did. He got 70. This was back before we had decimal scoring and way before we had Superflex or anything like that, obviously. So here, his scores in the he had to buy the first round. His score in the second round was 67. His score in the third round was 70. And Z-Back put up 54.
Jason was just a team of destiny that year. It was it doesn't matter what you do, Jason. You've paid your dues. You get your championship. here you go. It's fine.
Oh my gosh, I hate that so much. I hope he loses. So you got Jason, I've got James, and that leaves one last matchup.
He put up a combined 140 points in the playoffs.
He
And
put
won a
in 2 weeks in the playoffs. His entire playoff score was what you and I put up this past week. So the last matchup we got to cover. Also, Scotty said just catching strays over here. Scotty, look, I would root for you if it was your second season and you had a bad year the first year. You can't come in and dominate a hard-fought league where we all compete like tooth and nail, scratch, claw, and bite, and come in and just dominate us to 12 wins. That doesn't, and have us root for you. That's not how that works.
I'm just throwing this out here. Of all the people in this league, Scotty is probably the least problematic person to win a title.
I would rather, honestly, I'd rather McMillan win a title. Like, he did his Sacco punishment this year. He did it.
I'd rather set myself on fire.
He did it in good faith. Like, and McMillan winning would be fun. Like, go McMillan. I'm rooting.
Yeah, it's like it would be fun, like another Trump presidency. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Which you would love.
It would be like another Brett Kavanaugh.
Again, what's another interesting thing? So in 3 of the 4 matchups, the teams have played each other twice this week. In 3 of the 4 matchups this week, the teams have played each other twice this season, and in every single case, one team has won both matchups. And here, it's Jason McMillan putting up 143 and 171 in week 12 against Brad, who put up 157. And by the way, if Brad wins that game, he gets the bye. He puts up 157 and loses, and that costs him the bye. And now McMillan has a chance to run his sword through him in the playoffs, but he is an underdog. He's projected as a 7.5-point favorite. Brad is.
I'm just throwing this out there. Brad never won a playoff game. Putman will continue that streak. He will not win a playoff game. Millen has the #1 fantasy running back. He has the 49ers defense against Arizona this week. He has TJ Hawkinson, #2 overall fantasy tight end. Trevor Lawrence, the prince who was promised. This is just the reality that we're going to have to live with. McMillan makes it to the next round. He was the #1. I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Pretty sure he was the #1 overall fantasy point scorer this season for ours. Did he pass Scotty this week? I believe he did. I could be wrong about that. McMillan beats Brad. Brad continues his streak of never winning a playoff game. He should have gotten the bye. It's the only way he's ever going to get to a semifinal. It is what it is.
They're talking about catching strays. So Jason Smith is the second highest scorer. Scotty still ended the season with the most points for, but Jason was about 22 points behind him. Turning back to the matchup.
Solid season. Okay, I thought he was a little bit higher. Maybe I misread it earlier when I looked at it.
Turning back to the matchup, if you're actually looking at who has the higher upside players, you talked about Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers and the 49ers defense as elite options, and they are. But there's a 49ers player on the other side as well. Brock Purdy, QB5 right now. Kyren Williams. You talk about the Rams, could have a monster day against the Commanders. Kyren Williams playing against the Commanders, who don't have a great run defense. Josh Allen is a big question mark in this game. How does he fare against the Dallas defense? He is the QB1 right now. He is the QB1 right now. He's averaging 23.6 a game. Brad absolutely holds the advantage in this matchup because of his.
Can Brad win this matchup? Yes. Will he? No.
I actually disagree. And don't get me wrong, like I said at the outset of this pod, or not like 5 to 10 minutes ago, I'm rooting for McMillan. I am rooting for McMillan. But if I look at these rosters top to bottom, Rachaad White is a low-key good fantasy option. He's actually RB5 right now. He's averaging 14 a week.
This is a weird year for running back. He's giving you 14 a game, and he's a top 5 player. Like, that's not normal.
There have been so many injuries this year, and he just has a high floor. He's just consistently chugging out 12 to 15 point performances.
Just to put this out, to drive home your point about how so many injuries have played a factor this year, Rachaad White is the number 5 ranked running back right now, 13.9 points per game. Look one spot above him, a player who is averaging 14.2 and sits at 16. Like, no, like if you play every week, you're a top 10 running back, it feels like.
But here's the thing.
Everybody's been hurt this year.
He also, in the the last time that Rachaad White had a single-digit score? Week 6. Like, he's
a high floor guy. I get it. He's gonna give you 10 to 15 no matter what, and maybe he explodes for a 20.
Brad's average is about 10 points above McMillan's. Brad's matchups are just as favorable as McMillan's. I will say Garrett Wilson does draw a tough matchup against Miami's secondary, but aside from that, his matchups are favorable. Olave against the Giants. Kyron I talked about.
I see a Q there.
I don't like Q's. Sun God against Denver. Like, there are some really good matchups on Brad's side. And don't get me wrong, there are some on McMillan's as well, as you identified. But I just have a feeling this is Brad's first playoff win. He truly does have one of the better teams in the league. And I think McMillan... I think both of these teams can win a title this year. I actually would pick both of these teams to beat Zach in the semifinal. But I'm going to give the nod to Brad.
So I'll throw it out there too. Our league has a history of low-seeded teams making good playoff runs. That does happen pretty regularly.
That's
McMillan
true, Sandy.
That mold. He got in with the wild card. He scored a lot of points this year. I think that there's just a lot of upside on his roster. You know, you got Christian McCaffrey, you got Stephon Diggs, you got Deebo Samuel, you got TJ Hawkinson, you got Trevor Lawrence, you got the 49ers defense. I get right now looking at the lineups here. I mean, you look at the two matchups that they've had against each other already. McMillan combined for, I'm sorry, how many points is that? Is that 310 points over weeks? I mean, it's. I think that Brad never won a playoff game. Putman continues that streak. That's all I'm saying.
So this is where we get to see.
I won't refer to him like that until he wins a playoff game.
It might be as soon as this Monday. It might be as long as. It might be as long as a long time from now. I'm not betting on Brad. Absolutely not. If he lived in Frederick, maybe. He lives in Nova. I don't bet on Nova, boys. Although, congratulations to you, Nova guys, who are getting the Capitals and the Wizards. That's big news. So,
like I said, it's going to take too long. 2028?
Who knows how long it'll take?
Everyone will be living in Frederick by then.
Will the Silver Line be done? No. All right, guys. Well, thank you, Jerry, for joining me on the podcast. This is actually just a fun fact. I said this in the chat this week. This is our 43rd episode of the podcast. Remember way back when we did the first episode up in my office, which is now my nursery? And we are now 43 episodes in. Next season, we're going to hit 50 episodes. This is like a syndicated TV show that nobody watches. But it's 15 views today, 8 concurrent views. I have to imagine either the whole league is watching or we're getting some random people who watch. And if, for some reason, if you have stumbled upon this channel and you're watching at this late at night, first of all, we got to talk. But second of all, thank you. We love you. And comment in the chat next time. Jump on in. Give us your questions. We talk fantasy. That's what we're here for. I'm Sean Fitzgerald. That's Jerry LeBlanc. Good luck to everybody except for Brad. Except for Scotty and Zach, who aren't playing and don't matter. And, you know, let's see what happens. Next week, we're going to know who's in the TPOP
Me and
finals.
Scotty are going to win this championship.
We won. That's what I'm doing for Zach too, because I got him that bye. If Zach wins, especially if he lays an egg this week again during his bye, we won.
We won.
All right, tall guy. See you guys next week.
Fine.
We're out.
I think we did. I think it worked out.